Hello everyone, welcome to a really late top MTG Arena top 10, and this one's a bit of a doozy. I've been thinking about cards that I really would like to see in the Mystical Archives, and at first I was thinking, oh, I wanted to see at least some allied cards because it'd be a waste of the frame. Like, we only get the enemy colored ones, we don't get some cards in allied colored and whatnot. But then we get a lot of interesting information bits. But first things first, we'll go with some of the caveats on this one, and I'll talk about those. So this is actually more like a set of cards I wish, but there is a series of restrictions here. So it's gonna consist of 5 allied colored cards and 5 cards with alternate casting costs that don't need colored mana. So the first 5 here is basically to address the fact that every Mystical Archive card is either monocolored or it's enemy colored. That's pretty much it. Now, the 5 cards with alternate casting cost is pretty much in response to the fact that we have literally Tezzeret's Gambit, the only card with Fire Action mana cost. So basically, you could cast it for 3 and 2 life. So no colored requirement there. I figured let's make it a bit of an exercise. Let's see how far we can get through this one. So the other caveat is that they must not already be in the Mystical Archive Secret Lair. So that's a gimme. Nor a time-shifted card in Time Spiral Remastered. So that's one other thing I noticed. That there is no crossover between Mystical Archive and any card in Time in the remastered sheet. It looks like it's been done on purpose. Cause heck, I would probably rather see Ponder or Preordain over Brainstorm, for example. Though Brainstorm's more of a nice legacy card, but it's about getting more access to cards as much as possible. Also, no split cards or DFCs. It would have been nice to be able to include those to make my life easier. But so that said, first off, these are the multicolored cards that are in the Secret Lair, and basically I took my inspiration from the fact that they had no choice but to put Fracturing Gust. I believe, no, we can get away with that, but it also solves another problem. Now, if you've listened to discussions like Good Morning Magic, you'd see that the reason they did not make an allied pair color series is because it would send mixed signals in draft. Like, my first thought was to Sev Dovin's Veto, although that one was on the Time Spiral Remastered sheet, and a bunch of other cards that would have really fit. But if there's one way to avoid the mixed signal, it's to have hybrid mana. So that's why we're doing hybrid for number 10 up to number 6. That's gonna be our mini top 5 on the lower half. Then we also have Aweless Dust. I considered putting a colorless card, but outside of Aweless Dust, the other two instants have a colorless mana symbol in the cost, and we don't have an easy way to produce that in the set, so that's out. That leaves another 2. One is a removal spell, but requires you to show a colorless card. Good luck having one of those in the set that's centered around enemy colors. And the other one is same cost as Aweless Dust, except it's pinpoint removal. And frankly, we have Introduction to Annihilation, which is probably a lot better. So I decided to forego that one. And I also forewent the idea of doing a Wooburg card because there are only 3 sorceries that are Wooburg colored. The only really good one is pretty much Coalition Victory, but even that one's a really big stretch, and I don't really see many people playing it that much. Other than that, I really would have wanted to say, oh, let's put a Dismember in. It's a highly sought after card, but it's already in the Time Spiral Remastered sheet. And my other alternative for an alternate cost would be Once Upon a Time. This would have been very perfect if it was not for the fact that it's so perfect, it's banned in almost every format. You can literally only play it in Commander and Brawl and Legacy, and even Legacy it's starting. Well, Legacy is not that bad yet, but you get the idea. So these are the cards that are not quite there. So first off, number 10, we're gonna play a little game. These are almost all of the valid cards on the list. There is one card called Memory Plunder I did not include because It has the same mana cost as Covetous Urge, but it's just a lot better. It just casts the spell directly. And probably way too powerful. Even then, I probably would not include that because with four pips, it might as well just be a single monocolored card and very hard to cast at that. So okay, so talking through that, you can see that I've probably already eliminated Covetous Urge, although that is probably the strongest card available in this list. Shadow of Doubt, it's probably too niche. I considered that one, but okay, if you're not actively playing blue-black, are you willing to pay blue-blue or black-black to just draw a card? Because there isn't that much library searching. That leaves us with, okay, so Scar Scale Ritual, I would have liked it, except it runs -1/-1 counters. Dream Salvage would be very niche, although it would be very nice to have. It would probably wreck Historic. Like, imagine having this in blue-black rogues. Although this one is about cards target opponent discarded, not milled. So, but even then, there are some variations that or just a simple one in Historic, like turn 2, a Thoughtseize plus a Dream Salvage, so you get. No, okay, that's not so great either. Generally, yeah, as you can see, I've already talked my way out of it. Not a very good card to put in. That leaves us with Memory Sluice. Mills the top 4 cards of the library. With Conspire, fine, but mill is not exactly a game strategy in any of the 4 colors. Well, you could self-mill, but that's kind of more of a lore hold thing. So, and that is red-white. So Memory Sluice is out. Coerce Confession. Target player mills 4 cards, and you draw a card for each creature card put in the graveyard this way. That would be interesting, except it's a set about Magecraft. I've noticed that the number of creatures tends to be a little bit lower because people are essentially casting X summoning, like Pest Summoning, Elemental Summoning, Spirit Summoning, as a way to get supplemental creatures. You're taking advantage of Learn to get that way. So not getting that. There are still creature strategies, like you can hit Quandrix with this. And River's Grasp, actually, I'm going to automatically say that all the cards that require you to pay one color or another, preferably pay both, are going to be kind of out for that reason. So, if I'm not mistaken, that means, yeah, Fate Transfer is pretty much the one that would be viable here. And it's actually very interesting. Like, take note, Quandrix has a counter strategy. Silver Quill has a counter strategy. And you can use this to, like, put counters on your guys as a result. That's a way to get advantage. It's also a way to hate out the cards guilds that are running counters, because you can move it from theirs to yours. Now this was made back in a time when it was all about -1/-1 counters. This was Shadowmoor, but imagine running this in a set where it's all about +1/+1 counters. This would be really nice. Prismari doesn't benefit quite as much. Witherbloom kind of benefits off it. You do get +1/+1 counters with the Blood Mentor, if I'm not mistaking the name. But that said, it's probably between Fate Transfer and Shadow of Doubt. But it goes to show that there's a reason why they did not go with this strategy, because they did not print that many cards with hybrid. Going through all the hybrid cards, all the good ones are either creatures or enchantments. There might be an artifact or two there, but the point is that these instants and sorceries are few and far between, and not so great. I might probably have rather gotten Memory Plunder back if it wasn't so monocolored at that rate. But that's number 10, Fate Transfer. Not a great start, but think of it as more of a thought exercise rather than a real top 10. It's a way for especially those who are into making sets, designing cards. Given these constraints, what would you pick and why? Number 9, Black-Red. This one is a little bit simpler because there are only 6 options here. So we got Den of the Fire Herd, 8 mana, probably the best, although it references target opponent sacrifices a creature for each black creature you control, then sacrifices a land for each red creature you control. So a little bit A little bit hard also. 8 mana for a 5/5 with an extra tacked on a... Well, it's actually not so bad if you think of it, because at the very worst, it's an 8 mana 5/5. Opponent sacrifices a creature and a land. Well, by this time, the land is probably not so relevant, so not so great there. You might get a little extra benefit, but not so much. Scar over here put a -1/-1 counter. That's an auto no, though it's probably the simplest one to put there. For same reason, Torrent of Souls, because it's benefits casting both black and red. That one's a bit of an out. Poison the Well. Destroy target land, deals 2 damage to that land's controller. Yeah, it's land destruction, but do any of the colors actually benefit you from destroying someone's land and dinging them for a little bit of damage? Not really. It's interesting, it's fine, but it's also awfully weak. And perhaps if it was destroy target land or if we were not playing with the hybrid restriction, I probably would have put Wrecking Ball from Dissension. That was just 2 black-red, destroy target land or creature. Is it Wrecking Ball or Wreak Havoc? No, Wrecking Ball. Wreak Havoc is the green-red one that's destroyed, can't be countered. Then we have Tyrannize. This one's actually interesting. Consider 3 and 2 other pips for target player discards his or her hand unless he or she pays 7 life. This would be very interesting in draft, though. No, especially in a set where people are about accruing card advantage because you are really playing instants and sorceries. But the other caveat is people are playing a lot of spells. So, what are the odds that by turn 5 they would have a decent, sizable hand that they're willing to keep, or their life total is low enough that you've wrecked them by discarding? So basically, it's a Punisher card in the worst possible way. And that leaves us with probably the only other good viable card. So apologies if it seems like my method of choice is choosing which one, talking everything out and choosing which one's viable, but it's definitely Traitors Roar here. Now this one is quite relevant because Witherbloom, Lorehold, Silver Quill, they have a bit of a go wide strategy. Prismari not so much, but they do benefit from getting certain creatures out of the way. They also can deal a certain amount of direct damage, although that is much later. So the idea of paying Traitors Roar, tap a creature, get it to ding your own opponent, and it's in the format where, let's see, the enemy color Quandrix probably has really big fractals. Like it's plenty of 4/4 tokens, tokens with a lot of +1/+1 counters on it. You can ding someone with it, and Conspire will actually benefit the smaller guilds like Silver Quill and Witherbloom because they would have a lot of extra ones. So you could actually get someone from out of nowhere. So then again, it is kind of really unbalancing for a draft. Like this would have to be set as a rare in order for people not to get got a lot. And how would you feel of this one being a rare? Yeah, I thought so. But that's pretty much the thought exercise about this. Basically, it's my way of saying please print more instants and sorceries with hybrid mana. Or give us Mystical Archives again, except when we go to the opposite end. Maybe instead of Strixhaven, there is another. Maybe it's not community college anymore. It's a state university. You know what I'm talking about. We'd like to see allied colors come back. Could also be a way to do it if we do go back to Tarkir, because you have to remember a lot of the cycles here are basically reflections of that. We do have Elder Dragons in Dragons of Tarkir. We do have the allied colored commands in Dragons of Tarkir. That we probably could have used some instants and sorceries with hybrid cost there. And my mouse just died. Hold on a sec. So next up we have Azorias. So this one again, only 6 choices here. Probably could. So what do we have here? So let's get. Well, the simplest one would be Turn to Mist, but how excited would you feel about this? It might replace Ephemerate, but this but I would probably rather have Ephemerate there, so that's out. Again, because of 2 colors of mana benefiting, Repel Intruders is out. World Purge, 8 mana. Not an easy card to understand at first glance. Like, okay, all permanents get returned. You just basically reset the entire board. You get to craft your 7-card hand. It's a whole bunch of do nothing, and basically your opponent gets first crack. But that said, we do have a lot of other choices here. Like, we have Aethertoll, put target attacking or blocking creature on top of its owner's library. We do have a Bury in books, so Aethertoll is not that much of a stretch. The Quandrix does have a way to produce a lot of fractal tokens with their creatures, so Conspire is relatively reasonable. That said, this is very backbreaking if you do get to cast this with Conspire. And probably not as exciting, though I wouldn't mind this one. That's a decent choice. Thoughtweft Gambit, this one would probably win the game immediately. Tap all creatures your opponents control, untap all creatures you control. It's basically it's kind of like a 1-turn time walk, but it kind of ends the game, though it's kind of very situational. But the one I went with, oops, too far. The one I went with is Mirror Weave. One, because this is actually a very interesting and exciting rare, and it's a bit of a skill tester also, because you can actually use this as sort of a wrath. I was talking about fractal tokens, like, you can use this. It will basically turn every other creature into a 0/0 unless they already have +1/+1 counters, so you could wrath a board with this way. So very good with Quandrix. Prismari doesn't mind this so much, though because they do have ways to produce large tokens. Lorehold doesn't mind it that, and Silverquill doesn't mind it that much, because Silverquill doesn't mind because they have a lot of small creatures, but they do get +1/+1 counters, so they do benefit. And they also, and Lorehold doesn't mind because their creatures are relatively small, so using this to select a larger creature can get. Now that's it. It's a skill tester because it works both ways, so you have to be very careful about which one to do. But I probably would choose this one. This is probably one of the more exciting ones. That said, I would not fault any of the other choices, but I figured we should have a little bit of excitement once in a while. So this is my number 8 pick, Mirror Weave. Number 7 for Celestia, for green white. Now these are the choices available. Fracturing Gust not included because that one's already what they chose. I probably would not have chosen Fracturing Gust because that's pretty much a sideboard card that's really only gonna see use in Commander. How many artifacts and enchantments do we exactly have in this set? Not that many. There is an argument for Sundering Growth though, because being able to populate tokens would be very nice. Well, not for Quandrix, but it's very not for Quandrix. It would be kind of okay with Witherbloom. You're getting pest tokens. It's also kind of okay with Silverquill and Lorehold, 2/1 flyer and 3/2 token. The one that misses out is basically Prismari. You would really love to clone those 4/4s if you can. Now, Reknit, we don't use Regenerate anymore, so that's out. Nature's Chant, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Fine, but I don't think we really need this effect. Barkshell Blessing, +2/+2 and Conspire. Fine. Dawn-Glow Infusion. Now, this would be the worst of it because all it does is just gain you life and gain you life. Okay, probably prolongs the game, but for a draft, it kind of works with Witherbloom, although it doesn't track how much life you gain. It just tracks if you do gain, so it triggers that much. So gaining so much life off a Dawn-Glow Infusion is probably not so great. Safe Ride Quest, search your library for a forest or plains card. This one's probably also safe, but again, let's look for some power. So my number 7 is Mercy Killing. Now think of it this way: this can work both ways. Like if you're targeting one of your opponent's stuff, it wipes out a lot of it does answer large creatures. Sure, they get a bunch of 1/1s, but you might be able to play around those. On the other hand, it also benefits you in another way. Like if you're playing Witherbloom, we have Tend the Pests already. That's probably better, but this does give you some flexibility. and you kind of want to go wide. Same with, say, Lorehold. That one likes to go wide a bit also, and it likes to put stuff in graveyards and get stuff out of the graveyard. It's Quandrix. Yeah, you can convert your big fractal token into a bunch of small 1/1s. So that one's another out there. Silver Quill's kind of the one that loses out on it, but you could always use it as a kill spell. So this one works fine either way. So this is good. Would be number 7. And number 6, I guess I can talk about Fire Spout. Why I'm not picking that. Fossil, fine. But come on. Okay, that's enough. Let's be honest. If there's one card you're gonna put in this one for a hybrid slot, it's gonna be Manomorphos. It's pretty much how much value? I think it's close to a $4 card, so not bad for an uncommon. This would, and imagine this as a mystical archive. This would be a sweet money card. That said, giant baiting is not a far stretch. That one probably would be acceptable as well. But I'm gonna stick my money and my mana into Manomorphos. This would probably be a good chase card for this experiment. That said, the reason all of these are down here on the 10 to 6 is because we're pretty much scrounging the bottom of the barrel. I guess I could do a set where if I ignored if I ignored the requirements of not messing up draft, how would I pick these? I'll let you know it. Do let me know in the comments which cards would you have picked. Now we're on to the alternate ways of casting. So these have a way of casting without paying colored mana. I'm also avoiding if you control a land of this type, so because that kind of means you're paying that mana already. That said, number 5 is Land Grant. This one any deck can play, although you do have to. You kind of want to play at least 2 forests just to get some benefit out of that. So it kind of messes with any guild that is not Witherbloom or Quandrix. But think of it this way: you're not gonna have a land in your hand every time. Like you play first few cards, you use up all your lands. Now you have a free Magecraft trigger. Yeah, you get the forest, but that's actually, if you think about it, it's kind of on team. Field Trip also only gets a forest too. In fact, I think Quandrix Cultivator also only gets a forest. So there seems to be a team on that one. We're not exactly getting quality ramping. But that said, I'm putting this down at number 5 because it still slants towards that direction. Though you can still play around it. Like you can just treat the forest as colorless mana producer, so sort of colorless. But there you go. Land Grant would be my number 5 pick. Others get a bit more interesting. Number 4, Ravenous Trap. Now, I'm pretty much picking this one. Sure, you can cast this for absolutely free, 0 mana. But again, it's conditional. 3 or more cards have to be put in the graveyard from anywhere this turn. So it's a one-shot effect. Like, the best chance is most likely combat. You get to nuke a bunch of creatures. So this card by itself not going to see much play. But being able to exile all the cards from a target player's graveyard, it's relevant against Prismari. I'm not so relevant against the other guilds though, but this is pretty much the best free spell. This is pretty much the free spell with the easiest condition. Like, the other choices are Archive Trap, where someone has to search a library. Doable, but we already have a blue card. Same reason why I didn't take Mindbreak Trap. Good luck getting. If a player casts 3 spells, copies don't count. And that leaves Summoning Trap. Probably the better one. I would have liked it as green, but we actually have another green representative up here much later. And creatures don't often get countered here. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with that Ravenous Trap. Again, not that many choices. I honestly would have preferred to have Dismember if it were not for my own restrictions. But that said, I kind of want to have at least a representative from everything. So here we go. Number 4, Ravenous Trap from original Zendikar. Number 3, this one's also a bit of a stretch because you don't need to spend mana, but you do have to have a red card to remove. But considering the red cards we have available to remove, Blazing Shoal. This one used to be a thing in Modern, where it's like people going for turn 1, turn 2 kills, like a creature with haste, Blazing Shoal, dome to the dome. I think the original combo back then was even just Spark Elemental, Blazing Shoal for, I think, the biggest cost. Now it's a 12, so you could essentially give something plus 12 plus O. So, but back then I think their more reasonable ones were like 8s and or like 9s. So 2 Blazing Shoals, 2 red cards with 9 CMC and a Spark Elemental. That's a turn 1 kill. Super unreliable, but it's actually very interesting to have here, because think of it, Prismari has a lot of 7 mana cards, and they even have a few that are they tend to lean on the top end. Even Lorehold, they do have a bunch of cheaper creatures, but they also tend to lean towards the mid to high range as well. So imagine, instead of casting your Creative Outburst or casting your Magma Opus, like if you can get someone from out of nowhere, you can get them with a Blazing Shoal. And if you are playing red, you can actually just spend mana. So this one is probably my number 3 pick, because it did have impact in Modern. It would be very interesting. It probably would break Limited, because it's pretty much an I win card. No one's gonna expect to see this one, but it would have been fun. I guess the other shoals would be in consideration, like there's the Sickening Shoal from Black, that one's big removal. There's a Nourishing Shoal that gains life, not so great. I don't remember what the white shoal does. The blue shoal is basically a counter spell. Now let's stick with Blazing Shoal. Let's go big and go home. Number 2, this one is probably the most reasonable one of the bunch. It's probably the most realistic pick. It's again from Shadowmoor, but this one is Spectral Procession. Now you can essentially just cast this for 6 colorless mana, so basically along the same vein as Tezzeret's Gambit. But it also pulls people towards at least having a shot at putting this in a white X guild. So it will super benefit Silverquill, it will super benefit Lorehold. But in a pinch, any of the other guilds could play this, though probably not as exciting or as necessary, but the option is there. And also, frankly, the only other viable one is Flame Javelin. It's the 2 and a red one, but it's basically a sorcery that deals 4 damage. I guess that one might be okay, but white is really suffering from choices on this one, so I kind of gave them Spectral Procession there. So that's number 2. And number 1, the best way to give the set an alternate cost spell. It's in Time Spiral, but it's not in the Time Shifted sheet. It's Edge of Autumn. Now, there is no alternate mana cost here, but it does have an alternate cycling cost. Basically, it has 2 modes. You can pay 1 in the green, search your library for a basic land card, put it in the battlefield, taps, shuffle your library. If you control 4 or fewer lands, so it would really benefit Quandrix a lot. Witherbloom kind of fine with it, but you also get, but all the colleges get the option of just, well, sacrifice a land, cycle. Especially in draft, you're going to end up with a bunch of extra lands. So it doesn't give you a Magecraft trigger, sadly, but it's a cheap cycle that's not gonna wreck you more often than not. And you kind of want, and anyone getting extra card draw, it's kind of fine. That would be my number 1 pick. That said, this entire series, probably the least exciting one. It's more of a set designer's exercise rather than an actual top 10. I'll probably come up with a better top 10 next time. In fact, if you have good top 10 ideas that have not been so taken by anyone else yet, please do let me know, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, turn on notifications and whatnot. And yeah, please let me know if you have any other suggestions. I did get another interesting idea, but it was so late that I decided to run with this one first. I'll let you know what it is next month. So until then, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you guys again next time. Take care, God bless, stay safe wherever you are.